There we go. All right, Jack, go ahead and introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about your experience.
First of all, I like the pink background. I just want to say my name is Jack Sapino. I've studied abroad fall of 2019. Wow. It was crazy how that flew by, all the fun experience there. I studied abroad in Dublin, Ireland, and was one of probably the best times of my life, meeting new people, still talking to those people, believe it or not, learning new things, learning about the culture, and learning about kind of how to be on my own and learn without really using a map. I looked around, and instead of using my phone the second week I was there, I was able to figure out kind of what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go, and how I wanted to go about it. I think it's very important to think about study abroad right now with COVID going on. It's really tough to think about study abroad, but it's very important as well to think about study abroad because it's a whole other world and it's a whole other story to tell everyone else, all your friends, your family. You still have pictures from, going from that experience, take lots of pictures, and you're able to share that moment. Also, another thing is with that COVID situation going on, it's very important to think about the precautions. When I was over in Ireland, it was kind of the same situation. It wasn't a global pandemic, but you had to be aware of your surroundings, be aware of what was going on, and use common sense. And I think that's very important when coming back to the US to have that same thought and that same thought process of making sure you're in a comfortable place, understanding how to be on your own, and understanding kind of what it's like to be on your own as well. So there's a lot to talk about with study abroad. There's a lot to learn about study abroad, but it's definitely a story to tell your friends and family. And it was just a wonderful experience that I can share with anyone.
All right, thanks. And we'll come back to you with some more questions in just a second.
Sounds good.
Sammy, you want to go next?
Yes, I'll introduce myself. Hi, I'm Sammy. I am a senior psych major, and I studied abroad in London. And I went last semester, so the fall of 2020, the spring of 2020, and so it was. I personally thought it was a great experience because it was like the first time I was really able to, like, besides like going to a campus like Curry, I only live 40 minutes away from here. So going to London was like the first time I was ever like really far away from home, living for so long away from like my family and everything. So it was definitely hard for me to get adjusted, but I think it was like a really good way for me to grow and kind of see what it's like to live in a city and kind of like have my own schedule, because I also had an internship. So it was very interesting to see what it's like to work in a city and kind of like feel like what it's like to be a local. So yeah.
Awesome, thank you. And Shannon, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Shannon. I'm a junior, and I went to London in the spring of 20. And so I had an interesting semester when it came to the pandemic happening. So obviously came home early, but the time I was there, it was a really good experience for me. It was like the first time that I was away from home, like by myself for an extended period of time. So it was a good experience.
Great, thank you. So, one of the questions I have for all of you is, how did you go about choosing your program, and what were some of the things that were important to you? So was it classes, location, kind of what was that decision and search process like for you?
Well, I think that the decision was all about kind of what am I going to get out of this? If I go here, what are the classes I'm going to take? Like you said, it all kind of plays in the decision on what you're going to do for the study abroad program. It was tough because it was either a time situation where I was going to go to Australia or, Dublin, or it was even London. And it was tough because it was like, well, so what do I want to get out of this? What do I want to get out of the experience? And I've never really heard a lot of things about Dublin. And I know that some of my family was from Dublin, but not too many people that I knew had a Dublin or Irish heritage. And so I think it really determines what you want to do over there and what you want to learn. I wanted to go over there and do an internship. That didn't work out. So I ended up taking classes that I was very interested in, Irish history and culture. And those classes kind of really were the decision to why I wanted to go over there.
Great, thanks. Sammy?
For me, so I knew that I wanted to do London from the start only because I am really bad at learning new languages. So I knew that finding like an English-based country was probably the best fit for me. So then once I chose a country, I obviously had to choose a program. And the office was talking with me about it. So it was Ned. And he was like saying like, oh, there's this, like he knew that I knew Jack. And like we did the same program. And as I was like doing like my search, he was already in Ireland. So it was kind of just like, because he knew that Jack was like really happy with the program he was in while he was abroad. So kind of like connecting me to that. And then I realized like how nice everyone, like I really enjoyed like the people working at Kappa. So yeah.
Great. Shannon?
Well, so I went through Kyrie, so I either had the choice between London or France, and I chose London. But the reason why I wanted to study abroad was I have a friend who went to Kyrie. She graduated in 2016, and she did the same program that I did. She went abroad through Kyrie to the same school and everything that I did. And so I remember hearing about it and like being really interested, and I obviously like her experience was really good and helped her a lot. So I wanted to experience what it was all about.
Great, thank you. So then I think, Jack, you already mentioned this a little bit, but I'd love to hear about the types of classes you all took. What were your favorite classes? Also, what were some challenges? And then what the process was like for you in terms of, were you trying to get credit for your major, gen eds, things like that? Anything you'd like to share about that?
If I could continue on that. Yeah, the classes were very different. It was very tough to look at classes because those classes didn't involve a lot of homework. It was a lot of bigger assignments. And for me, that was really tough and really complicated in the beginning for me to think about that. Is like, oh, so if I do bad on one paper or like test, I'm going to fail. And I'm not very good at test taking. And I was really stressed out. I think about that. But then I started to look for classes I really wanted to take over there and thought about, kind of what I could do, like what I've learned over here in the US and what I can do over there. So I would say my favorite class I took was definitely the history class. History, and there was like a global analyzing of the city, which we went out. We didn't even have a class in a classroom. We went out and we just walked around and talked, and we went to different museums and learned about that. Same with the history class. We went on different field trips. We went to Belfast one time, which was really cool. So those moments, like those memories, are really what helped me learn a lot about the class or learn about the culture, which is really what I wanted to do over there. And then I would say another class would probably be the radio class. Didn't do a whole lot, but learned a whole lot about kind of the structure of how they learned radio. It's very different over here, but it was very interesting to learn as well. And a lot of those courses I took went to the gen ed part, and which was very helpful because as soon as I came back here, I felt as though that, okay, now I know what I need to get done. Now I know what I need to do for credit. In the beginning, it was very tough picking out those classes, but Ned and my advisor helped me out a lot, and it was just such an easy process to kind of talk with Kappa as well. They were very welcoming and understanding about what I needed for credits.
Great, thanks, Jack.
So for me, I absolutely love the classes I took in London. I took 3 classes. Most of them, or like 2 of them were for my minors, one for my theater minor and the other one for my sociology minor. So I took, what was it? It was an activism class, which is what covered for my sociology minor. And then I took theater in the city, which talked about theater in the city throughout London and like the history of it, which I found really fascinating. And then the third one that I took was an internship course, which is what went along with my internship. So I think my favorite had to be the theater in the city class because we were actually able to go to actual shows in London and kind of like take what we learned in the class and apply it to like actual shows we were watching, which I thought was really cool because I really love plays and musicals and stuff, so it was very fun to do that. But I also really liked my other courses, and I liked how, like Jack was saying, and it's similar, I think, with Ireland, with London, is that I'm guessing with Europe it's probably more of like bigger assignments than doing like small assignments like the homeworks and stuff, which was harder, but it gave me more time to be able to like visit different places and travel, which was important for me because like part of why I was in London was to travel as well. And what I also liked about the classes was that I was able, the 3 classes I took were met once a week, and then every week it like varied. So some weeks we'll be in the class, but other times we'd go to like off campus things. So we'd either, for my sociology class, we went to museums, we literally went shopping, like to like a bunch of shopping malls to help apply what we were learning to the classes. Like the shop, like I don't know, it's hard to explain, but like it had to do with the course, and it was like so cool. And then we went to see shows, and I just really liked how like we didn't just like learn about it on a screen on a PowerPoint. They actually took time to take us out of the building and kind of show us where everything was.
Great, thanks.
So yeah.
And Shannon?
So like Jack and Samir were saying, the courses that I took were like way different than what we're used to here at Curry, because you had like one paper and like a midterm test, and that was like all you had. So it was hard for me to get used to it. And so the classes I took, they all were for gen ed. So when I got back, it was like nice to know that I don't have to worry about what gen ed classes I'm going to take because I already got those. And so I think the classes that I took, because I was at an international school, there were students from all over the world. And like I even had professors that weren't just from like the UK, they were from other countries as well. And so like I took a class on like the global Cold War. So it was interesting to learn about the impacts the Cold War had from like a not an American viewpoint, which really helped me like to understand the role that American politics has across the world, but from like an international viewpoint.
Great. And did any of your classes kind of connect to London, or did you have any kind of field trips related to those, as Jack and Sammy did?
Well, I took one class that had field trips because I was taking intro to photography. So we would go out. Well, like one time we went to the V&A to look at their photography exhibit. But other than that, my classes like were more like we didn't go anywhere.
Okay. So then,
Can I add something?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So like that's why like I feel like another reason why study abroad is so important is because even like it depends on the school you're going, but like a lot of times you're like seeing what it's like to go to school in another country. So like it's adding another element where like it's like one thing to say, like I feel like since we're from America, we're used to like the American like schooling system, but it's like cool to see what it's like, how the grading system's like in a different country. And like even like with me, like at my internship, I worked with children, so it was like interesting to see like the schooling that they had to do from like it's like completely different than American schooling. So just even like not a college level schooling, it's like it's interesting to see how like different cultures have different things.
Great,
So, yeah.
Thank you. So then outside of your classes, I know some of the questions that we get are around what's your housing like, was your housing like, and meals. Is there anything that you would like to say about your experience with that on your programs?
I will go. So I got housing, and it was like basically like one of the houses on campus at Curry. So you lived, like I had a roommate, and there were I think like maybe 15 other students living in the same house. So we had like a lounge downstairs with like a TV and a bunch of movies, and like a mini kitchen and like a washing machine, and everything was in the house.
Great.
I would say the housing was pretty much like a college dorm. I got really lucky because when I got there, I had a single, and I roomed with 2 other suite mates. And, you know, it was nice to have a single because I got to really learn more about myself and how I like to be alone. I don't really like to be alone. I've noticed it. I don't, I noticed that a lot this semester too. So, it's kind of interesting to see how that being alone and then being alone here sometimes is like interesting because it happened over an island and I learned about it and I was by myself over there too and I liked it and I didn't like it. So that's interesting how that plays a role over here when you come back to the US. Meals were kind of tough because we didn't really have like I think we could set up a meal plan, but I never really had a meal plan. I just went either down to the cafeteria at the school, or I went off campus and got food. I saved up money, which is a great idea. I'll talk about that if you bring that up. It's a great idea to do because you're able to kind of do what you want to do and eat what you want to eat, and you're in a different country, so it's awesome. I met people from the school. I think that's kind of the biggest thing is meeting people from the school. Everyone is from different countries. It's insane how that all plays a role. Like they loved America over there, and it was interesting. It was very welcoming, and everyone was very welcoming. And I didn't expect that coming right off the bat. And it was really nice to feel welcomed into a new, I could even say like new home now, but a new world really.
That's an interesting point you made, and I don't think maybe students are thinking of this, but if you go to a larger city like London or Dublin, that you're likely going to not only be meeting locals, but people from all over the world because they're attracted to these cities and the universities. And so it's also a chance to meet people from other places as well.
Right.
That's great. Sammy, anything you want to say?
Yeah, so I didn't live on a campus. I lived in my own like apartment with 4 other girls. So my program gave us like apartment, like it's a whole building dedicated to kids in my program, and they were all American. So I pretty much went to school with all American, besides the professors. Everyone there were American, so I was able to meet, but they were from everywhere around the country, like in America. So I met people from Texas, Ohio. So like, even though like it wasn't like other people from like around the world, I was still able to meet other people with different experiences just throughout America. So that was really cool. And but at my internship, that's where I was able to meet a lot of local like people who are from the city, which is really cool because then I was also able to get the both of like kind of the Americanized version of London and kind of also the actual what it's like to live there. But like in my internship, there are also people from like other countries as well. So I was still able to meet other people from around the world. Like one person was from Turkey, someone else was from Ireland, while others live or are from the UK. With meals, since I did live in an apartment and my program didn't have like a campus, we were expected like to make our own meals and buy our own food. So that was definitely interesting to have to like figure out because it was something I wasn't used to because I've never lived off like without like a meal plan or having like parents make me food. So I felt like that was really cool. So yeah.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I completely forgot to mention that. I would go to the market every time and get food and cook steak, and I'd try to make food and make new recipes. And it was so interesting because that's something I don't really do at home, but I want to do now because I was able to cook on the stove. Set the fire alarm off a couple times, but we figured it out that the heat was too high. But it was just so fun because you're able to really take that culture of food and bring it into what you've known from cooking, or if you don't know cooking, it's something to learn. I wouldn't say learn it here, but I would say try it over there. You know, try to cook steak and try to cook, you know, shrimp. And I tried to cook a bunch of things. And it was just awesome, man. Sometimes it was by myself and sometimes it was other people. And it was awesome to be a part of.
I definitely felt like the cooking our own fields was or food was definitely very fun because like he was saying, it's more of like it could be also a very social thing. I had a lot of flatmates who were like loved cooking. So like she would make like a big pot of soup and we just eat it together and we'd like or we'd go out to eat to our favorite like 'cause we lived on like kind of like a busier street with like a bunch of restaurants. So we choose a random restaurant that night and just go out and just hang out and kind of like I felt like it was like cool to just like choose like a food and just eat it together with friends.
And it sounds like, you know, for all of you, it was, I've heard students talk about this before, is that there's that opportunity to kind of be more independent than maybe you are at Curry, where you're, in some ways, it's great preparation for after college and kind of your experience living on your own and having to buy all your own food and all that sort of stuff and make new friends and kind of navigate all of that. And so I think that's also something that maybe students aren't expecting when they're thinking about studying abroad, but kind of one of the added benefits of that as well. So anything, I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but I know Jack had mentioned quickly, is there anything anyone wants to say about kind of budgeting or planning that you had to do or ways that you saved money in your host cities that students should know about?
I just think it's important to have students know about budgeting, to think about that if you're studying abroad, how much money you're going to spend, because it is important, and it's something that really has made me think a lot about spending and being smart with the money. There are some times that, you know, you have the money and you have the opportunity to do things that you want to do that you are never ever going to do probably ever again unless you go back there, but it's a different experience. I would say spend the money what you want to do, but also make sure you're budgeting.
I feel like it's a really good idea to save like beforehand, before you leave, make sure you earn as much money as you can if possible, because once you're in your host country, it's hard, like you don't really have an opportunity to work and make money unless you're doing an internship, and even then it's not necessarily a paid internship. So definitely save as much money as you can so then you can, because it's really hard to know how, like once you get to the host country, to know what you're going to spend your money on. So making sure to like have as much money as possible, so if something does happen, you like obviously budget, but like stuff happens sometimes, and like just make sure you have enough money so you can have like some leeway.
Yeah, and like make sure that like before you go, like you figure out like how much you want to spend, like if you're going to travel, because like flights and everything once you're in Europe or wherever you are cheaper. Like just make sure that you have budgeted like your food and like your accommodations and whatever else. And like also like, I mean, obviously like because I was abroad during COVID, the fact that I had to come home early and like trying to like just make sure that you have money in case you have to come home early, especially with COVID being a thing still, because plane tickets last minute are kind of expensive. Yeah. So just have like extra money prepared in case anything happens.
Good advice. So then in terms of, does anyone want to talk about, and again, I know Sammy and Shannon probably had a little bit of a different experience than usual, but in terms of traveling outside of your host city, kind of places that you went or how you planned and organized for that?
I can say something real quick and then I gotta get going.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to say, funny thing was I wanted to go to London and I ended up going to London with a bunch of friends. It was awesome. It was an awesome experience. I'm happy I didn't study abroad there because it was very expensive in my opinion. And we also went to Amsterdam, so that was a whole other world as well. We got to see a lot of the Van Gogh Museum, which was really, really cool. So I wanted to travel more. I think that's the biggest thing. If you could travel more, travel more. I wanted to travel more, but the time and everything was just of the essence. And it was tough because some people wanted to go places and some people didn't want to go places. And I would say when you're in wherever you are and study abroad, be safe and make sure you're also putting yourself first and what you want to do, because a lot of the time people did not want to go out and I just ended up going out and being safe because they're trying to do what they want to do, which is completely fine. but you're also experiencing it. And I think that you need to take away something from that experience besides, your friends not wanting to do something you want to do. I remember one time everybody went away, and I stayed in Dublin, and I went to this show by myself, and it was probably the best dancing show I've seen, of food and dinner and the dancing show. And it was just so awesome. And it was just made me so feel like happy. And, because at the time I wasn't really with anybody. It was by myself. So it was like, okay, like, I don't know what to do. So I ended up really starting to go off on my own, being smart, in a comfortable environment. And I think that's something to really think about. If you don't want to go to these other places, take a step outside and go see what the city that you're in has to offer. There's so much. Like Sammy said, those plays, like that would have been awesome if I went to those plays in London, but we only went for a day. So it's a different experience from city to city, and it's something to check out.
That's good. Good advice, exploring your host city. Did you get to explore Ireland at all, kind of outside of Dublin?
Yeah, so I went to Belfast actually twice. I went with my family and I went with the students. We did the exact same thing that my family did. So we went to the Titanic Museum. It was awesome because they could experience it with me. So that's another thing. If family can join you, please have them join you, because it is a wonderful time and you can actually say you were there with me. And those are the best moments. And I think that I was able to explore and have more fun with them there. And I think that's very important when you're thinking about going to study abroad, bringing your family, but also thinking about, are you going to be sad when your family isn't there? So that's another one of those things too. So I visited a lot over in Dublin. I did everything I could, and just kind of took it all in. So that's what I would say, is just take everything in, everything you can. I think Sammy and Sam as well could definitely, agree, right? Or Shannon, sorry.
Yeah, I like bouncing off what Jack was saying. I think it's very important to take like any like opportunities you can while you're abroad, because me and Shannon unfortunately had the experience of having to come home early, and we were obviously not expecting to have to do that. So like a lot of the plans that we made had to get canceled. So like trying to like make sure you budget your time as well, like making sure, like, I'm not saying like do everything in as like a short amount of time as you can, because obviously like you need a rest, but like make sure you're budgeting your time and making sure that you have like time, like consider really anything like can happen, and like make sure you travel, because I think some of the best plans I've made was like traveling with my friends. Like we got to go outside of outside of UK and then in the UK too, and we have like so many funny memories from just traveling. So like I feel like it's important to make sure you make plans and do things.
Yeah, like adding on to what Sammy said, like obviously because I had to come home early, a bunch of the trips that I had planned had to be canceled, but I was able, like I went to Ireland with two of my friends that I had met. And then I also went to Scotland with another one of my friends, and it was super fun to like just be able to travel with like your friends and experience like other places aside from like where I was, like aside from London. My biggest regret was obviously didn't know that COVID was going to be heading in as bad as it was, but my biggest regret was not to travel more while I still had the opportunity to. And like also like adding on to like I had my grandmother came to visit me like the week before I was sent home, and so like having family come was a really unique and like fun experience. And it was like really cool to like, because my grandma had been to London before and her family is from the UK, so it was really cool to like be able to like bring her around London, but also have her show me like her favorite places within like the UK and like hear about like our family's history through someone who had obviously been there before and like knew more about it than I did.
Thank you.
Can I add something to that?
Yes. Yeah.
So it's kind of like with family. So my brother was able to come so my parents came in the beginning of the trip. So I was still like So they came with me before I started my program. So my mom wanted to help me get used to the environment. So like it was nice to have them there to learn the area because my mom also studied abroad. So she was like, oh, I love these places. So that was cool. But what I loved was when my brother came, he was planning on staying for a week and then we had to be sent home. But it was very nice being able to show him because by then like I knew how to use the tube system, like I knew my way around and everything. So like I felt like very like confident like in showing him how to like I travel and I'm like I was kind of like showing off like all the new skills I've gotten. And I was like really proud to show him London because this was also his first time outside of America. So it was cool to like be like, oh yeah, like I was telling him like things not like what to do and what not to do while in London. So like he like because like I had to learn them as well. So I'm like, I'll just help you like learn everything so you don't have to like make the mistakes that I did. So that was just really fun just showing him like what I've learned.
Thank you.
Yeah. Like, so if your family has the opportunity to come visit you, do it. Because my grandma still talks about it. She still talks about how much fun she had with like not only like me, but also like she met my friends and how much fun she had. Like, because by the time my grandma was there, we knew we were coming home. So we had tried to fit in as much as we could do in London in 5 days. So we brought my grandma with us and she still talks about it. It's like her favorite thing. So
that's so nice. All right, so hold on 1 second. Oops. All right, so is there anything else that you would like to add just in terms of any advice that you would have for students considering study abroad or things that you wish you had known before?
I think what's really important to consider, especially in the age of COVID, is taking classes that you know will still be beneficial if they have to be moved online. Because for me, it was rough because it was before everyone knew how to figure out how to do online classes. So I was basically teaching myself everything because my school didn't do Zoom. They did like pre-recorded PowerPoints and everything. So that was a really hard thing for me to get used to. So like definitely like have it planned out that your classes might have to be moved online and you're comfortable with the material having to be learned like online through Zoom or whatever it is.
Kind of building off what Shannon said about classes, I would take in considering, like I agree, like in consideration of like the classes that you do choose and try not to like overload yourself with like classes. Cause I know in America you can, or like this, like if you're comfortable at your home institution back, like at Curry, you can be like, oh, no big deal. I can do 18 courses or 18 credits. But in like the host country that you're going to, it might be harder because there's at like their school system is way different than it is in America. So like you might be comfortable with that here, but like the way that they teach you there might like affect you differently. And then you also want to like travel and you want to hang out with friends and it's like more of like a social thing too to be there. So like being consider like how you learn best and then like also like what the plans that you might want to do while you're abroad. So yeah. And I also think that a skill that I definitely like, well, I don't know if it's skill, but like more independence, because like I know that I have a history of like relying on other people and like it's easier for me to just be like, oh, can you do that for me, because like I'm like really bad at like inserting myself. But I feel like London, especially living in an apartment and not having to live on a campus, definitely made me like I have to go and get my own food, like I do all this by myself and make sure that I get to these places on time. So definitely, and now like I miss the independence and like living in my own apartment. And so it's like it was a harder adjustment for me to come back onto a campus on Curry. And like, so yeah, so just take in consideration about the independence you'll gain.
Yeah, I wish that before I went, someone told me just how different the UK style of teaching is, because I did not expect it. Like I thought it was gonna be like the little assignments that we have like every week or something, but I wasn't expecting or I wasn't used to having like 1 or 2 big assignments and that being it. So I guess I would suggest like do your research once you decide where you're going to go to understand how their grading system and how what their teaching style is.
And do you have, any tips for students? So it sounds like for the most part, you all got used to the different learning environment. But is there anything that you think would be helpful for students to know, beyond, so yes, doing their research, or anything that you did once you were in London that was helpful with your classes?
I think it was helpful to like make friends within your classes, like tell people that you sit next to or something, and or set up a group chat or something. So like if you are like you need help or something, or you forget what the assignment is, you can ask them and then they can help you. So like talk to the people in your classes, make friends with people in your classes.
Great.
I also think that another thing to do is to find like a good study place. And because I know that for me personally, like doing work in my flat was very difficult because I'd rather like watch TV, cook food, talk to my flatmates. So like you might have, if you were living on like a campus, maybe it's like the library there, or maybe wherever you eat food. But since I lived in an apartment, I would have to like find like, I mean, obviously I did some homework in my flat when it was later, but like maybe earlier in the day, try to go, like I went to a library, a public library, and I did homework there, or maybe a cafe. Maybe you have a favorite cafe that you do homework. So like just finding a space where like you can have separate from your living and homework. And I know that's kind of cliche to say, but like I feel like it also makes you seem more like a local because like you're out like experiencing the environment.
That's helpful. Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Also, one more thing, sorry, with money, I would kind of like, I mean, obviously do your research, but like with money, because like in each country they have, it's like obviously different than the American dollar. So kind of like I know, for example, in London, we had the pounds, and kind of just like understanding like the difference, like the amount different, like the difference the dollar is to the UK pound. Because if you don't really realize that like the pound is not the same as the dollar, that's a good way for like you to spend more money than you think you're spending. And it can like really like jeopardize how much money you're spending. So kind of just like learning about like the money, like how the money works in the country that you're going to. So yeah.
Also, like adding on to what Sammy said, like along with the money, but also like for me, like even though I was in the UK, which is kind of similar to the United States in a lot of ways, like culture shock is really real. And like I was shocked the first time that I went to like a supermarket and to like see like the prices that they included the tax and everything, so that took a while for me to get used to not having to add anything on to what the price was.
Right, that's a good observation. So is there anything else that you would like to share, or anything you think you'd like other students to know about your experience or planning for it? Would you study abroad again? Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Well, to answer your question, I would love to study abroad again. Obviously, because my program was also cut short. So yeah, sorry, I got distracted for a second. But yeah, I would honestly love to go back to study abroad.
I would love to study abroad again, especially because my program was cut short.
All right, anything else before we go and sign off?
I think I'm good.
You're good? All right, well, thank you both so much.
Thank you.
All right, and have a good night.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.